we are going to go through step-by-step process of painting this fun little thing right here. All we need is a pencil, some watercolor paints, and some paper. This is a heavier watercolor paper. If you don't have heavy paper like this, that's okay. You can use a thinner paper. Just try to be careful about how much water you put on there. All right. So grab your pencil. See, I got a mechanical pencil right here, got an eraser. Doesn't matter what kind of pencil you have, as long as it works. And then I've got one of my favorite little watercolor sets here that a dear friend gave to me some years ago, and still got paint in it. So we're gonna get some more use out of all that today. We've got some cups of water here. Water. That's the dirty water. That's the not as dirty water. And for this, I only have one brush. If you want different size brushes, that's okay too. It's all about what you're into. So I'm going to make sure that my friend is here today before I get cooking. My friend, who's here today with me? Is it Brooke? Is it Jill? I'm not sure. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. If you can hear me, if somebody's out there, you can hear me. Just give me like a thumbs up or anything. A sign of life. 2 minutes. Sign of life. Don't make me start singing to you. Just let me know you're out there so I can hear you. So you can hear me. If not, that's okay. I'll just get started anyway. I see Taylor's here. Thanks for coming, Taylor. Thanks for coming, friend. All right, so I'm just gonna get started anyway, I guess. I think you guys can hear me. And if you can't, then I don't know, we'll figure it out. All right, so I'm gonna go through this one piece at a time. I got my blank paper here. We'll keep this over here as a reference just to help out a little bit. I grab my pencil. Forgive my hands are a little dirty today. I've been making art all day long, and I am covered in oil pastels and watercolors and colored pencils. It's a good day. It's a good day when you get to do art all day. All right, let's pull this camera back a little bit here. There we go. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a little circle. So we wanna, if this is halfway up the page, we wanna go a little bit higher. Pull this thing just a little bit farther back. Does that work? There we go. All right, so we want this to be a little bit higher in the center. So let's say this is about the center. I'm gonna go a little higher here and make myself a really light sketch circle. You should be able to see that. Okay, it doesn't matter if your circle's a little smaller or a little bigger than this. It really doesn't matter, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna end up making first a light bulb shape. All right, so I follow this curve here. It's gonna curve down and then up on this side. Looks just like a light bulb, right? I want this to narrow down here at the bottom. Narrow down here at the bottom. So it's like a light bulb shape, or if you turn it upside down, it's like a vase or some sort of decanter device type thing. I'm just going to erase that bottom part of the circle. So now we have our little shape, right? This is for our initial shape for the hot air balloon. Now the bottom of this, as you can see, it cuts off. And there's that circle there. There's a little torch in here where the flame goes up. I didn't paint that in this. We can if we want, if you have time later on, but it's not super important. We're not striving for ultimate perfect detail here. I think we can get the idea across with just some basic shapes and colors. So I got my circle. It narrows down to the shape down here. And then I'm going to make a little smiley shape here, right? It's like a kind of a round, like a smile shape. And then the exact opposite right here. Almost like an eye shape, right? Now I'm just bolding out these lines a little bit so you can see them on camera, but you don't have to make these lines very pronounced. In fact, the less you do that, the lighter they are, the less they'll show up in the final product. So if you don't want a lot of pencil lines in your end product, then keep them light. I'm not really that concerned about it today. You can still see them in here, but I think it looks cool. It's acceptable, right? All right, so now we've got our balloon shape. Now we're going to need a basket to hang out in. Literally. All right, so we're going to do our basket. And the first thing I'm going to do at the top of the basket is I'm going to echo this shape right here, this curve. So I'm going to go down a little bit lower here. And I'm just going to echo that. It's the same exact curve, just move down a little bit. Okay, and that's going to be the top of our basket. Now if I go down a little bit farther, I want this to kind of flare out a little bit. I want my basket to flare out. So we got plenty of room for our feet. Lots of foot room to walk around. We don't want to feel too confined while we're floating above the ground there. We feel like we have a nice spacious basket to hang out in. So this flares out, right? See how these angles kind of go? They don't go straight down. They go a little bit out. And then again, we're going to mirror this same curve. So I'm sorry, not mirror, echo was probably a better word. If it was a mirror, it'd be opposite, I think, right? We'll do that in a second. So this is the echo of that same curve. So we get that curve, curve, curve. And then the bottom of the basket, we're going to have that mirrored curve, right? That opposite side curve. It's more like a smiley shape instead of an upside down smiley shape. All right, so we've got our balloon shape. We've got our basket. Now we have to have our little lines here for decoration. Now, if you want to do a design or whatever on your balloon, that's cool. I like to make balloons out of different shapes. Sometimes you can make, whatever, big hearts or whatever it is you want to do. Now to make this curve right here, I want to imagine that the curves start at the top and then they follow a very similar curve to this, right? This outside curve of our balloon shape is going to be the same exact shape. It's just going to come down like this. Follow that edge, right? Follow that shape. It's the exact same shape, just squished in. Remember when you get down here, you want to pinch it in a little bit so it gets real narrow here, right? That way we make sure we have plenty of room for the other stripes, which we want to do. So just to make sure we have plenty of room for the other stripes, let's start down here. Got a little space, a little gap, and it's going to go up. And this one's going to have a little bit less of a curve, right? It's more subtle because it's facing us. Now, there are some reasons for that involve perspective and stuff like that, but they're not super important right now. We're going to save ourselves a little technical jargon. But you can witness this in any day, like just, take like a basketball or a soccer ball or something, some sort of rounded shape, turn it in different angles, and you can see how this line will bow out, right, if it has straight lines or lines around it. So again, I start down here. Now this side bows this way because it's on the right side of our shape. Okay. Now again, since this side is on the right side of our shape, we're going to do another line. It's our last one. And it's going to follow this curve here. Come right down this way. And this is great, right? So I was really lucky to plan. I don't really plan this out, but I like having the red on each side here because it helps stand out from the background. If your colors don't end up that way, that's okay. Or if you use different colors, that's fine. I like using warmer red and yellow to have the balloon stand out from the cooler blues in the back. If you don't have a lot of experience with that, just kind of, you can run a Google search on like color temperatures and things like that, and it'll give you a little bit of insight into how you figure that stuff out. All right, but it's pretty simple. Blues, things like that are usually cool blues, greens, and then reds, yellow, oranges. Those are typically warmer colors. Then you can drill down deeper into it, and of course, you have like cool yellows, right? So it does get a little more complicated from that, but we're just sticking with the basics today. So I'm just kind of reshaping my lines, making sure they look okay before I get in there and start adding stuff. We're not going to do a whole lot of sketching things out. We'll maybe do one or two more lines here, but we're not going to do too much with the pencil because I want to have the rest of it. A lot of this is just watercolor paint, right? All right, so I've got my balloon, I've got my basket. Now we need sandbags so our balloon doesn't float away. We need our sandbags so the balloon doesn't float away. All right, a little sandbag on this side. Sandbag on this side. Sandbag on this side. And then a sandbag right in the middle. Maybe little lines that go up to them. And these sandbags are just here. I'll flip it over and show you what shape this is, right? So the sandbags, like if our basket is like this, the sandbags are just, they look like beans, little beans. Or you can have them hanging down lower, You can have maybe some strings hanging off there if you want. Yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you. Whatever. It's your hot air balloon. You decide. And then, of course, I've got the ropes that hold my hot air balloon together. Very important. Otherwise, this thing would drift off by itself. We'd be sitting on the ground. Okay. All right, so I'll give you a second to catch up with that and just make sure you've shaped out your lines and all that good stuff. All right. All right. So, sorry about the little shake there. Hit my knee on the desk. There we go. All right. Just erase some of this extra stuff here. All right, one more thing I'm going to do before I get too far is I'm going to sketch out lightly just the silhouette of these mountains. Now, I didn't do it here. It's not totally necessary, but I want to do this as a reference because I think it just sort of makes it easier to plan things out. Now, this is, right, we're floating high above the mountains, high above the mountains. These are, of course, mountains. These are way back in the background, but I still like it high above that green. So I'm just going to really lightly make this little wavy shape down here at the bottom. Doesn't matter if it looks like mine. We just want to, gesture in some ground area there. So that's a couple of wavy lines there. We'll use that as a reference. So we'll paint the sky down to that point, and then under here we'll do the greens and stuff. All right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and erase some of my extra lines. Erasing some of my extra lines here. And grab my watercolor paints. My favorite part. I got my guides with my pencil. I'm going to rinse off my brush, get it nice and wet. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is just lay down, so you see there's kind of a yellowish hue here to my balloon. And I like it because it just kind of makes it look a little bit more rich, rich in color. Like cheesecake kind of rich, not like Richie Rich kind of rich. Real saturated. All right, so let's see. I'm going to wet my brush down, get some of this yellow. It's really light colored yellow. Go in and just brush some of this yellow in here. Right across. I'm not going all the way up. I might not even go all the way down here. Let's see. Oops, sorry, I think you heard my computer there. Turn that volume down a little bit. All right. That's okay if we don't have a moderator today. I can see what's going on here, I think, on my computer. If you guys have questions or whatever, just shout them out to me on the in the comment section. This is one of my favorite projects. Actually, this was inspired by a project I did with an artist several years ago at an event. And he asked the question, what lifts you up? And, we were doing a bunch of pieces like hot air balloons and things like that. And then people would write on it what things in their life lift their spirits. I think that's a good lesson. Sometimes it's important to remind ourselves of the good things that we have in life, the things that bring us joy, and try to fill our lives with more of that. Anyway, all right, so while that yellow is drying, we're going to work on some other parts. I'm going to move down here. We'll do some work on the basket. I'm going to get some brown. Now, if you don't have brown, like this has brown, but if you don't have brown, you can mix up complementary colors like orange and blue would be really good for this. In fact, maybe we should do that just for fun. So I got a little orange here. All right. And a little bit of this dark blue. Oh, nice rich brown. Oh, I like that. All right, so I can start by just kind of going around some of these edges, almost outlining it. I don't like to lay the paint on too thick all at once. I'm sure that the more confident that one gets, you, me, whoever gets with the medium, the more risk you take. But I, for now, just kind of want to blob down some of this brown. I'm going to rinse off my brush, and then take this dry brush here and just move some of this paint around. And this way, if it does get too heavy, or it's not light and not heavy enough, I can always add more. It's easier to add paint sometimes than just to pull it up. I feel like my brown needs to be a little bit warmer. And we can do that by adding more orange. Oh, that's nice. That looks pretty good. Oh, hey, thanks, Dylan. My friend Dylan showed up. Also an incredibly talented fella. Dylan, buddy, it's been so long since we've worked together. I miss my art friends. We get to visit each other in the office pretty once in a while, but for the most part, we're all running around, working in different things at different times. So we don't get to spend as much time together these days, but hopefully sometime in the future. All right, so let's see. I got a brown basket. Maybe we'll start working on this ground area now. Yes, Dylan has questions or is here. So if anybody's got questions, please feel free to ask away. I don't think we're doing the competition thing because we didn't get a whole lot of entries there, but I would still love to see your artwork, guys and gals. I would love to see your artwork because that's why I do this. I do this to inspire you. I could sit here and paint all day and not videotape it. Probably be a little less complicated, but not as much fun because the goal of this is to inspire you to make art. You know, don't be afraid to experiment with this stuff. What happens if you paint a hot air balloon? If you're sitting at home, you paint a hot air balloon, and it turns into a big muddy mess? Nothing. That's what happens. Nothing happens. There's no consequence. It's okay. Trust me, I've got pages and pages of, here, I'll show you a couple of these things today. Pages of crazy art stuff that just, not all of it worked out, you know? And that's okay. It's a process of experimentation. All right, so again, without too much procrastination here, I'm going to get a little bit of light green. If you don't have a light green, you can always just take a yellow, mix it with some green or some blue, and you get a nice bright green. Now I'm not going to go all the way to the top of my mountains right now. When I say my mountains, I mean my wavy lines here. I'm going to leave a little bit of white up there. So I'm going to take some of this green on my brush and just scratch it in here, different angles. This reminds me of pea soup. Pea soup. It's an acquired taste, I suppose. Might be one of those things that tastes really bad when you're young, and then as you get older, it tastes better, like tomato soup. Oh man, when I was a kid, I used to eat tomato soup by force. And now that I'm older, I'm like, where's my tomato soup? So you never know. So let's see, I got my lighter green is going to be towards the top of my mountains, you know. I'll scratch some in here a little bit lower too, just to make it interesting. And this is just yellow and green mix, or a lot of yellow and a lot of blue, right? Because green is really a combination between blue and yellow. Right, so there's my light green. I got some dark green. And if you're making your greens, this would be the same combination. It would just have a lot more blue in it. All right. So I'm going to come in here and just scratch this darker green color in, but it's going to be beneath. It's going to be below that lighter green. That's because the light is coming down on the mountains. It's casting shadows, and then towards the base of these hills or mountains or whatever is where the color would probably be the darkest, right? The more intense shadows. I mean, we could even get super crazy and put like blues and stuff in there, but we're just having fun today. There's no pressure to do anything wild. Just having a good time. As always. I'm painting almost up to the edge of my paper. If you like using tape, you can tape off your edges. That sometimes helps. It's a matter of preference. Just gonna set this down here. Alright, I think that's okay for now. This is actually a really quick project. This is one of my favorite ones because it's easy, it looks cool, and it's relatively quick and painless, you know? Those are my favorite ones, my favorite little projects, the ones that are pretty simple to pull off, but look cool, they look fun. All right, so that is the groundwork for our mountains. It may not look like much, but it's pretty much similar to what we did before. This watercolor should lighten up a little bit as it dries. We'll see. All right. Rinsing off my brush really well because we're about to start working on these clouds, I think. Let's check this. Ooh, this is nice and dry too. That's good. That's real good. Thanks, Sean. Thank you. It's a lot of fun. All right. All right, so with the clouds, it's going to be very similar to the mountains, right? We paint a little blue, we smudge it around with our brush, and then we skip a space. And then we're going to paint some more blue, smudge it around with our brush, skip another space, and that creates this layered cloud effect. Right? These aren't realistic clouds, but you can look at them and you can say, those are clouds. And that's all we're looking for right now. All right. So in this case, I think I'm actually going to rinse my brush off and put water down first because I want this color to diffuse a little bit more. These are our clouds. We want them to be less detailed, kind of fuzzy in the background. So let's see where I'm going to start. I think I'm going to start down here towards the bottom of my sky. All right, so I got my brush, wet it down. I'm going to take this water right across here. I'm not touching my greens. I'm not touching that white either. I'm trying to stay above the pencil lines. Just trying to go right up against that pencil line. Because wherever this water goes, that blue is probably going to bleed. Right? It's going to spread into that watery area. And I want this water to come up, or this blue to come up just a little bit. Let's see this. All right? So look how that stuff just spreads right out. I'm not really adding any more water. In fact, I'm trying to take some of the water off my brush so it doesn't get super out of control. But look how that color is just spreading out. It's doing its own thing, and that's my favorite. That's my favorite part about watercolor. The thing that makes me want to learn more about it, because it's like, it's not just you making the art, it's this collaboration between you and nature, you know, gravity, physics, I don't know what you want to call it. This whole diffusion of this paint pigment with the water, you know. It's a communication between you and the medium. And those are my favorites. That's all part of mastering any sort of medium, which, you know, I've got a long way to go before I master something like watercolors, but fascination, you know, that's where it starts. Curiosity. I really believe every one of us has the ability or the, you know, the capability to do something like this, to make art and be creative. You just have to give it a shot. Be willing to make mistakes, right? Looks like I used a different blue this time. That's okay. I like this blue too. All right, so I'm going to skip a space, right? My water came up there. You probably can't see it very clearly on there. A little shiny. Look a little shiny. But you can kind of see where the water ends, right? Now I'm going to skip that space there. And I'm going to lay some more water down up here. And when I'm doing this, I'm not doing it in a straight line, you know. I'm not trying to go for stripes. I'm keeping the bottom of my cloud shape just as bumpy as the top. Just as bumpy and unpredictable as the top. So let's see. Got some paint on here now. And hopefully I didn't put any water in my hot air balloon area. We'll see. We'll find out here in just a second. Because if I did, the paint would bleed right into it. And then we'd have to figure out some way to, you know, maybe with a paper towel, pull that up. Luckily, it looks like we didn't make that mistake yet. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that. And if you do, that's okay. You can just grab a little paper towel and just dab it right on there. It'll come right up. You probably figured out that, you know, when you do something like this, you kind of got to do it in order. And the reason that we did this order is because we wanted that yellow to dry while we were painting these bottom area mountains. Right? Now the yellow's dry, after we do the clouds, we can come in here and start adding color to the higher balloon without worrying about smudging or ruining that yellowish color. In fact, we could probably even add some more to it later on. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm just taking a dry brush every once in a while, sort of wiping some of the excess paint off my brush here. Just want to even some of this out. You can even get cool textures, you know, if you want. You can get cool textures by just taking a paper towel and kind of tapping it on there. Be careful when you do this that you don't go into your other objects, because you'll get blue in them. Alright. Oh, this is turning out pretty good so far. Just a dry brush. Just pushing this paint out. There we go. Let's see. We'll do another set of clouds. Oop, I forgot the water first. Well, that's alright. That's okay. We'll just keep going forward. I just rinsed off my brush and got some just straight water. I'll push this paint around here until it lands where I want it to. Trying to stay around the balloon. This blue color's behind our balloon, right? Got our cloud shape there. That's pretty cool. Could be a little darker. We'll see if we have time. Maybe we can darken it up. But I'm digging it. I think it looks cool so far. Get a little bit of blue at the top just to frame out the image nicely. I like that, how it kind of seems more self-contained, you know. You can't really see that with the camera, sorry. There we go. This looks more self-contained with that blue at the top. Maybe put a little bit in some of these other areas here. Now, if we wanted to make this a little darker, the clouds a little darker, we can go in there later on and maybe add some like purplish colors or like deeper blue or whatever, but we'll see if we need that. I think it looks okay. I don't have any trivia about hot air balloons. Dylan, you know anything about hot air balloons? You ever been in a hot air balloon? Has anybody been in a hot air balloon? Oh my, where I grew up in Rhode Island at the university there, they do hot air balloon rides every year, I think. Alright, so I'm going to rinse off my brush. I think it's time to start thinking about painting in the reds for our balloon. Has it already been 30 minutes? Time flies when you're having fun. So I rinse off my brush, make sure it's real clean, make sure I got the blues off there. And I'm going to get some red. Get some red. Alright. So remember, we had the outside shapes were red. And you skip one, and then that middle shape is red also. You almost went on one, but the weather, oh, that's fair. Yeah, I don't think I'd brave a hot air balloon if the weather was poor, if it was poor conditions. It's not really a game you want to play, I would imagine. Safety first. Alright, so I got my reds. Wow, look at that's really deep. That's okay. That's a really deep red. But this is where that red's going. I'm just going to wipe off my brush and just taking a dry brush, pull some of this red through this balloon. Alright, just pulling this right up. And the reason I started at the bottom and I'm pulling that color up at the top is because I want it to be brighter at the top. Brighter, you know, in this case, we can achieve by just having less paint, you know, so like a little bit more watered down version of that red. And that should give those yellows that we put down earlier a chance to shine through, see? Kind of like that right there. And this works with almost any type of paint, really. You know, I wouldn't use too much water with like acrylic paint. You want to use something that has more of a binding agent in it, but But you know, if you do layers underneath layers, those layers underneath will kind of make a color glow. You know, it'll glow through that surface. Alright, let's get a little bit more red. You think in Orlando there's hot air balloon tour? Oh, okay. Well, it's good to know. I'll have to check that out one of these days. Maybe I can take the gal out there and go for a hot air balloon ride. It's not really on my bucket list, but maybe it should be. Hot air balloons have been around for a long time. Longer than any of us here. Just add a little bit more red because I really like this color. All right, let's get some more. And bring it in here. Again, it looks really deep down here, really dark red. We'll just plant it down, and then we'll wipe off our brush, and then we'll spread it around. This is one of my favorite things to paint on cards when I work at the hospital, because it is the very definition of uplifting, right? Just turn it around so I can get a little bit easier angle with this. Okay. Again, heavier paint I applied down here, and then I dried off my brush, you know, rinsed and dried off my brush, and then I pulled that paint up. So there's less and less and less and less as it gets up here. This isn't like a magic trick. I wasn't like, paint you should have light towards the top. I just dragged it, right? And then I started running out of pigment, and it made it lighter at the top. Easy peasy. Same thing, just spreading a little bit more red on there. And then do it right over here. So this is the outside stripe here. If you hear painting in the background, that is my shepherd sitting next to me. He is really excited about everything all the time, and he's my inspiration. I wish I could show him to you because he is a handsome fella, but we are focused on a hot air balloon. I don't think he'd be up for a hot air balloon ride though. That might be a little bit much for his little doggy constitution. I'm being real careful here towards the edge because I don't want my red to bleed out into my clouds. Again, if it happens, you can take a little paper towel and dab it, or you can clean off your brush really well and dry it and pull it up that way. You know, it's all trial and error. You don't really learn how to fix mistakes until you make them a couple of times. There's a message in there somewhere, but I'll leave that up to you guys to figure that out. So I'm just dragging this red towards the top here. There we go. Maybe we'll put a little shadow, get just kind of some of this muddy stuff that's in my palette up here. I'll put a little shadow underneath the sandbags, maybe. I like to take some, like a darker blue like this, and then sometimes go in and maybe scratch out some of the details. I'm just using really light pressure here, not pushing down too much. Using really light pressure so I can use the, it's kind of blurry, but the very tip of this brush, just the very tip of it. I'll go in and take care of my ropes here, my lines. This ridge here, maybe just the front part. Maybe some of my little torchy thing that's going in here. And if you're feeling really brave, Maybe we should put somebody driving our little hot air balloon here. So I'm just gonna scratch in a little silhouette. It's kind of so far away. They're so tiny. Put another person in there so they're not all alone. This is the kind of adventure that you would want to share with somebody, I think. Right? So we'll have this little, maybe a little arm sticking up there. You probably, I don't know how well you can see that on there, but yeah, you can see that on the camera. Oh, this is even better. Oh, the hot air balloon was a self-driving hot air balloon, but this one is being piloted. I can see that my clouds again. My clouds have a little bit more purple in them here. I think I used this blue here for that. But you can have yours whatever you want. If you like, want to have a more pinkish sort of balloon or even a more red. Like if I wanted it to be deeper red, I could just go in and add a little bit more. With watercolor, sometimes it's really great it's a good idea to like wait, right? So I applied this first coat, and if I had a lot of time, I would just wait until this thing dried, and then maybe come in here and let's see, add like a purplish thing to the bottom of this balloon, just to really give it that, shape, make that shape stand out. Let's give it a little shot anyway. We got some time. Get some red. We'll make a nice purple color. Just put some of that purple in there. I like purple because it makes it kind of a little shadowy. Or I'm sorry, adding blue to things makes it a little bit more shadowy. Keeps that rich color. I don't like using black paint because it flattens things out. I just hear my art teachers from back in the day shouting in my ear, "Do it without the black paint." Black paint can definitely be useful too, depending on what you're trying to do, right? See right there, I had a little bit of the red that bled into the yellow, and I just took a little clean wet brush and kind of lifted it up there. Very dear friend and former employer of mine once said that watercolors were a lot easier than I would imagine them to be, and that you can erase watercolors. People say, "Oh, acrylic paint, you can paint right over it." Well, watercolor comes right up apparently if you add water to it. Go figure. Who'd have thunk? Oh yeah, thanks for putting that up, Dylan. You like the new one best, Patty? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think I do too. I think I like the blues in that better too. And the silhouettes of the extra characters and stuff. I think this is I think this is okay. I kind of dig it. Kind of digging it today. Again, right here, just kind of bled over. That's all right. Doesn't have to be perfect. This has been so much fun. Look at that, just a little wet brush, pushing it around, kind of evened it out. Yeah, if you guys like these videos, we have been making them twice a week. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up at this pace, but we've been making them twice a week. And afterwards, I go through and edit them a little bit and then put them up on YouTube. So we have, gosh, I don't know, almost 80 videos up on our YouTube channel right now. If you get a chance, please, please, please go like and subscribe to that YouTube channel. We'll keep being able to provide these cool, fun little art session videos for you. And if you have questions or if you have requests or things that you'd love for us to do in the future or present in the future, we've got autumn coming up or fall. Um, I guess maybe we're already in it. It's October today. We've got fall happening, so we're probably gonna do some fall themed stuff this month, and then we got next month we've got some holidays rolling up, and so if you got ideas or things that you think that you would like us to see or like us to go through on here on Facebook Live or on YouTube or whatever, give us a shout, send us a message. Got a really great team that Show how you dab the red and then water. Let me see. Sorry, I'm seeing this right now. Show how you dab the red and then water. There. Like the red on the balloon? Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure what you mean there. The red is, yeah, it's just, it's red here, and just put it in between, put it in that stripe, and then drive it up. I mean, you can have a little water on your brush if that's what you're talking about, Patty. You can have a little bit of water on your brush, but you don't want too much. Just enough, you know. If you got thin paper, you're going to go right through it pretty quickly. So definitely be conscious of that. But this is just red paint with a very small amount of water. If I start going on here, right? Like let's say, I plop a giant, I don't think it's going to work really right now because it's still pretty wet. But let's say I plop a giant chunk of paint down there and I'm like, oh no, what have I done? I could either try to pull some of that paint up with a brush, which is pretty easy before you mix it around, or I could just clean off my brush, right? Just clean off my brush, rinse, 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 rinse. Dry it off really well. So I got a nice clean dry brush and then just pull that stuff up there, right? Because there's already water in that paint. There's already water in that paint. So before it dries, it's a little time sensitive because once it dries, it's kind of stuck there. But if there's enough water, you should just be able to use a clean brush. Another technique is to have another brush standing by that you're not using for anything other than smudging paint around. But again, you want to be sort of conscious of that. Because like you don't want to smudge the red and then go smudge the green or the blue, without cleaning your brush off in between. Now, again, I could, if I wanted to warm this up a little bit, I could come in here with some yellows. I love this yellow color. It's a nice warm yellow color. You know, you could get crazy with this if you really wanted to. There's no limit. I like the combination of having the warm colored balloon with the cool colored background. The yellow kind of made a little orangey. That's all right. Whatevs. That was a good question, though, Patty. Thanks for asking. Thanks for your participation. You're good at ruffling paper? Yeah, that's good. That's a good skill. I'm actually the project I was working on for later in the month is a lot of um, actually here's my tool right here I was using. This is going to be one of our paint tools for this project later on. We're going to do some fall trees probably, but that's for another session. So if you're good at crumpling paper, then over wetting paper. Yeah. Yeah, it does help to, if you can get access to thicker paper, that's really good. I have been using these like Canson watercolor cold press papers. Um, I find they stand up pretty well and they're not super expensive. It's like $6 or $8 for a pad, that size of watercolor paper. And I think it's a good investment. You can still paint through it. I mean, if I put enough water down on here, it'll still go through there. Is this one of my favorites? Show us the brush. Oh, the brush. Yeah, I love this brush. This brush is, these brushes actually here, this is the same one. This, believe it or not, came standard with a watercolor set. Let's see if you can see the brand name on there, Faber-Castell. And yes, I use this brush in almost every painting that I've ever done on any of these videos. This brush, or I have probably 3 or 4 of them because I used to get those watercolor sets all the time. I just love this brush. It's a pointed, it's got a real nice point on it, cleans up really well. If you take care of it, and it's tough. It's pretty sturdy. If you abuse these things or you let them sit in the jar of water for too long, eventually the bonding will come loose and this metal part might come out and stuff. But take care of your stuff; it'll last long. This is for sure one of my favorite brushes. Um, I think that's pretty much it. Unless unless you guys have other questions, I'm pretty excited about where this went today. And I hope that you painted along with me. And if you didn't, I hope you give it a shot. Yeah, I think I like the new one today better too. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm gonna just put my little signature on here. Where am I gonna put that? Remember to sign your work. Sign your work, friends. That way, when they find this 1,000 years from now, they can say, this was your painting, 2020. I'm gonna sign mine, Mateo, 2020. That is not legible at all, but that's okay. It's still wet. I'll have to wait till it dries and then sign it later. Thank you so much for your support, Dylan. Patty, thank you for your questions. Thanks for joining us. Everybody who came, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Again, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. It would be a huge help. And we will see you on Thursday. I'm gonna go get back to painting my fall colored trees and prepping this next lesson for you guys. Thanks again for coming. Have a wonderful day and stay creative. Bye.